Welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. South Africa has announced that it will deploy more than 70,000 army troops to help enforce a nationwide lockdown to contain the spread of coronavirus, making it the country with the most stringent rules to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. President Cyril Ramaphosa had deployed over 2,200 army personnel when the lockdown was announced 27 days ago. But the recent decision to deploy more than 70,000 army men will be the biggest deployment since South Africa became a democracy in 1994. South Africa announced complete lockdown of service with an exception of essential services on the 27th of March. Only essential service providers who have applied for special permits, like healthcare workers, retail shops selling groceries, medical and pharma shops, banks and journalists have been allowed to function amid the crisis. 2 days ago, the South African president also announced a massive 500 billion rand emergency package, close to 10% of the country's GDP, to try and recover from the declining economic situation amid the coronavirus outbreak.
Now embarking on the second phase of our economic response to stabilize the economy, address the extreme decline in supply and demand, and to protect jobs. As part of this phase, we are announcing this evening a massive social and economic support package of 500 billion rand, which amounts to about 10% of our GDP.
Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Mark Roten for a ground report from Cape Town. Good evening to you, Mark, and thank you for being with us. Now, we believe that this 500 billion rand bailout has been widely welcomed. It's a social and economic bailout. How is it to be implemented?
Well, the biggest rollout is really with social grants, people who are already on the country's register. There are about 17 million grant recipients. Each of these will receive roughly $26 or 500 rand, in addition to what they have been receiving monthly. For this month of April, there will be a smaller top-up, but it goes a long way to help, because the biggest issue that most people face is the fact that getting food to friends and family, or specifically family members who don't live with them, is a little more difficult under lockdown conditions. The other place where relief is being offered is to businesses. Government is really hoping not to see mass retrenchments or layoffs, and a large number of businesses have already indicated that as things stand, they are facing the need to cut their workforce because of the economic impact of what we've now had 4 weeks of lockdown, another week to go, and we'll only find out later today or this evening in South African time what the future holds beyond the 30th of April. So that's where the focus is. It's been welcomed by opposition parties. It's been welcomed by organizations who are on the coalface and helping people in the communities. Starvation and hunger has become a real issue already. So it has been broadly welcomed, but there's no sort of resting on our laurels and certainty that it's going to be enough. Many still fear hunger over COVID-19 in South Africa at the moment.
I want to go back to that, but first, the deployment of 70,000 troops. This is the strictest enforcement of a lockdown anywhere in the world.
Yes, the thing to consider with the 70,000 troops is that they will not necessarily be on the streets, walking around with rifles in their arms, policing or assisting the police the way the army has been doing up until now. Many of those called up, many of those reservists have medical backgrounds. They're doctors, nurses, medical staff, and it has been pointed out that this is the largest deployment since our first democratic elections in 1994. But most of these soldiers and reservists can be expected to get involved in support services, possibly even building facilities and then helping to man infrastructure, which may be needed in the fight against COVID-19. So we could see military personnel actually assisting in building medical centers, medical facilities, and getting involved in areas way beyond or outside of the policing and the sort of enforcement role that most of the SANDF or South African National Defence Force members have been doing up until now.
All right, and now looking further to the rest of Africa, we are getting reports that the continent is on the brink of a food crisis in the midst of this pandemic. And this is further worsened by the high levels of poverty. Now, we could be looking at a major humanitarian crisis then on the continent.
It's a very scary report that's come out from the UN, 50% or doubling the numbers of people at risk in terms of food security, talking of 265 million people worldwide now. In 2019, 6 of the 10 worst hit countries were in Africa, and the need to ensure security of food supply chains, that is what's come out of this report. And again, Africa has some unique situations, going back to the situation where many people are earning an income that then goes to family in another city, perhaps even another country. And during lockdown here in South Africa, even just visiting someone to drop off food is a difficult thing. So the actual impact of food security can be a lot more complicated on this continent than in many countries. And we would hope to see that there's a rapid response as these needs and crises and breaks in the food chain come up, because hungry people become very, very dangerous. And we've already seen incidents here in Cape Town of looting of vehicles that were carrying food parcels. And there's no indication that will end anytime soon. So hopefully there will be a rapid response to this. And it certainly is in the forefront of the government's priorities. But we hope to see interventions beyond just local community groups and NGOs getting involved to help fill the gap and put food into empty plates here in Southern Africa and the rest of the continent.
Mark, great to speak to you. Thank you for joining us. That's Mark Roughton coming to us live from Cape Town, South Africa, for the latest on COVID-19 there.